Welcome to episode 3 of April Anger 2025, the early Amiibo tournament series we do that still doesn't have a catchphrase. Anyways, our first match is going to be Dark Samus against JigglyPuff. Looks like we're going to be on Kalos Pokemon Stadium. And JigglyPuff starts out the game with an immediate rest. Now, and she doesn't even get punished. So things to know about Jigglypuff's rest. If you land it or if you don't, you fall asleep. However, if you do land it on an opponent, you are asleep slightly less long. And for some reason, the Amiibo never seemed to realize that. Jigglypuff going for a very ambitious sleep there, not getting that one off. Additionally, rest does a lot of damage and actually sticks the opponent with a flower, which does even more damage. So while it can be risky to go for if it's not going to kill the opponent, it actually is good to do at the very start of a match right there, assuming of course that you land the move, because it deals, depending on how quickly your opponent mashes out of the flower, 40 to 50% percentage to the opponent, and most characters simply cannot do that much damage to you when you're at 0%. Maybe they have a really good combo and they can tie it with you, and Jigglypuff got killed with a charge shot by the edge of the screen. Maybe they have a good combo and they can potentially tie with you, but most characters especially cannot kill you out of that situation. Really the only way, and Jigglypuff got another rest to kill Dark Samus. So while Jigglypuff is visibly struggling this match, she is just hitting the most valuable move in the game, I guess you could probably call it. Maybe there's something else that has more value, but it's pretty hard to find. Especially on a character like Jigglypuff who needs everything she can get. Jigglypuff going high to avoid Dark Samus. Dark Samus actually falling into the sleep. Getting hit by a forward smash, but from the wrong end of the stage, it's not quite enough to kill. While jumping to get back up to the ledge, that is something that's really easy on this stage because the walls go vertically down into, I assume they extend past the blast zone. It's really hard to test that sort of thing because your character always dies. Jigglypuff does get hit by a fully charged smash attack there, but she was only at about 30%, and another rest! Jigglypuff has landed, I think, 4 rests this game, and missed 0. And almost got Dark Samus off the side of the stage. If Jigglypuff was a human player, she probably should have gone off even more to heckle Dark Samus. You can kind of teach the Amiibo that sort of thing. It is a little bit difficult in the case of a character like Jigglypuff, though, specifically because the Amiibo learn after what you do. If you want to teach Jigglypuff to go off stage, you have to go off stage and you have to actually manage to hit Jigglypuff, I'm pretty sure, in order to make the training actually stick, which is really hard because Jigglypuff is really good at making it back to the stage. Now for our second match, we're going to be having Ice Climbers against Bowser. Looks like we're going to be on Battlefield for this one, slightly to Bowser's advantage because his side special takes the opponent, grabs them, flips them up in the air. Bowser body slams them into the ground. Well, the thing about that move is that it goes at about pretty much the perfect height to always land on the top platform, even if you're at the bottom when you hit the opponent with it. And it looks like everyone's making it back to the stage. Nope, one of the Ice Climbers isn't. It's not the one that's going to end their stock, but they did get about 100% on Bowser. So it's looking to be a good, heavily favored Ice Climber stock. Even as I was just saying that Bowser has the slight edge because of the platform layout. Which I probably should finish the thought there, that the move kills you off the top of the screen, so if you land it on the top platform, your opponent has less distance to travel before they get killed. So that's why it's to Bowser's benefit. Ice Climbers, now that they've lost the second Ice Climber, are now suddenly struggling to get much done against Bowser, sending them off stage for what feels like the 7th time. It's been a lot this match, and Bowser just keeps making it back. One of the very appreciated changes for Smash Ultimate is that characters do have bad recoveries at times, but every character can usually make it back to the stage. In older Smash games, especially predominantly Smash Bros. Melee, which is where Bowser first appeared in, the bad recoveries in that game didn't go nearly as far, which even then Bowser has a very horizontal recovery, not very vertical, but it has gotten slightly better in pretty much each successive Smash game. But it did mean that as a heavyweight character, one of the benefits was supposed to be that you live longer, and that was true in terms of not getting immediately knocked out of the blast zone. But in any situation where Bowser got hit off of the stage, he didn't really have any longer survivability, because he would effectively not get launched as far as another character might, but then his recovery wouldn't recover him as much as another character might as well. It's been a couple of things like that in past games have made heavyweights never really a viable option. Smash Ultimate, of course, being the most balanced Smash Brothers game we've ever gotten. So, there's a whole bunch of different ways to balance that sort of thing, but I'd say they did a really good job. Ice Climber's beating out Bowser there. It is one of the risks of Bowser's up tilt. Well, I want to say risks, but if someone is behind you, the end of the hitbox comes out a lot slower than the beginning of the hitbox, since Bowser's claw goes basically in an arc over him, front to back. Front comes out pretty quick, well, reasonably so, but the end of the move is a lot slower. And it is interesting because a lot of different characters do have some sort of sweeping motion move that goes over their head from side to side. And depending on the character, it really depends on if the move starts in the front or in the back. So some characters are stronger than in behind, at least when compared to other characters. I think in general most characters are weaker from behind, if for no other reason than you can't grab behind you, you have to turn around first. And Smash Ultimate has taken some steps to alleviate those issues as well. So it's more of a footnote that sometimes when trying to punish an opponent, you have to know what side you're going to be on, or maybe what side you're going to be on from them. It's a whole thing. The Ice Climber is able to fully shield that forward smash. Bowser has a very strong smash attack. Forward smash, I should say. All of his smashes are still strong, though. It's not the strongest in the game, but it definitely hurts. And it has enough base knockback that it has a tendency to kill people when you get a shield break on them. Usually they only need to be about 30 or 40% if you push them to the side of the stage and then get the fully charged smash attack. And Bowser is one of the best characters at pushing characters who are shield broken due to his fast speed and heaviest weight in the game. Back throw is not going to directly kill the Ice Climbers. They go really high, go for a side special, barely able to grab the ledge. That kept them alive, but they still have another stock to chew through, and they're out of stocks themselves, and they're not going to be getting another backup climber. Down tilt is able to secure the game. Bowser's going to be making it further into the tournament. And here we have Charizard against Lucario. Anyone who's unfamiliar with how Pokemon work in Smash Brothers, they don't bring any of the type effectiveness in from the games. There's actually a cool exception for a Pokemon trainer character fighting another Pokemon trainer character. Depending on which Pokemon you have out, they do have a little bit of type effectiveness in there. But except in that specific mirror match, the Pokemon type chart plays no bearing into the match. This is worth saying because, as I have come to learn, a lot of people do not know that that's not a thing. I know it is a large mechanic to the Pokemon games, but it's really not something that comes into play in Smash Brothers. Which, of course, you're always going to have to make some sort of changes from the source material. Squirtle able to make it back from that. Surprisingly, everyone made it back to the ledge. Good job, the Amiibo know how to recover. Well, today they know how to recover. They've made mistakes before. Up smash on the platform as Lucario with just a little bit of aura on a very lightweight character. Squirtle's one of the, I think, 3 lightest characters in the game. Actually, wait, I think he's tied for 3rd with Mr. Game & Watch. And that's a very meaty up smash on Charizard. Charizard goes for a spike, and Lucario actually gets a Phantom Footstool on him. Trying to play off stage. Charizard gets a grab, but Lucario techs in, and I guess Charizard wasn't expecting it. To be fair to Charizard, that was probably the play I would have gone for as well. If someone is teching near the ledge, if they tech in place, they will stay there, and if they tech away, they will effectively still remain in the same position. So I can understand that that's the... It effectively cuts down your choices from 3, or I guess 4, technically, if you count no tech as an option. It does sometimes have its own benefit, mainly that it changes the timing of your getup, and you can also go for a getup attack after that. But usually it takes noticeably longer than just neutrally teching in place. So between your tech options, you have tech in place, tech left, and tech right. When you're at the side of the platform, you only have effectively the 2 options, because 2 of them overlap with each other. And then it's just a 50-50. Then you get into the Monty Hall problem of if the 2 choices don't have any outcome, should they be considered in the statistics for what counts when? And that is outside the purview of this tournament. Charizard quickly switching to the Charizard character. I guess he really hasn't been liking Ivysaur. Gonna start out the next stock as Squirtle again. In the Smash Bros. Brawl, when you were playing as Pokemon Trainer, you would get penalized for staying as one Pokemon too long. They took that out for Smash Ultimate. Which does also mean that if you, say, particularly only want to play as Squirtle, you can. You do have to switch back every time you lose your stock, but it is an option you technically have available to you. Squirtle, well, I guess the Charizard amiibo, as Squirtle, switched into Ivysaur instead of trying to exert more platform pressure on Lucario. An interesting decision, but Lucario is at a high enough percentage that switching to Charizard did get him the kill. It's the last stock and we're almost at a tied game. Lucario definitely read that Pokemon switch though. Switching Pokemon does actually mean you are unable to be damaged for a little bit because you don't actually have a physical Pokemon out on the field. However, you are, I guess I'd call it vulnerable slightly thereafter. It's easiest to think of switching Pokemon as an extra air dodge that Pokemon Trainer has. Lucario able to make that back. Lucario's up special actually gains distance it recovers the more aura Lucario has. So Lucario can usually make it back to the stage without, assuming if his opponent doesn't kill him without too much of an issue. Lucario needs to not get hit by another 2 of those, otherwise he's almost guaranteed to be dead. Or an up special while grounded on the platform. I guess Charizard learned how to use Ivysaur after all. Well, good job, I didn't see that coming. And now we have Chrom against Piranha Plant. Gonna be on Kalo's Pokemon League again. Instantly clashing, what was that, 3 jabs, 4 jabs? Maybe those were grabs. It was a little bit hard to tell. But clashing 4 of them in a row, that's not normally a behavior you see, first of all, from humans hardly ever, but especially not from the amiibo. Piranha Plant with a very good Patooey there. Chrom tried to avoid it, and he just moved to the side, which was still perfectly in range for getting hit by the enormous spiked metal ball. Chrom did not get a second jab to land the right way, so he actually got punished by Piranha Plant, but Piranha Plant got too greedy with the rapid jab, so Chrom was able to fall out of it. And then Piranha once again regained the advantage right after that. Forward throw near the stage, Chrom should be able to survive that. Piranha Plant goes for a spike. If it had worked, the platform is going to make it really hard for Chrom to do his signature try to recover to the stage and accidentally kill the opponent gambit. Piranha Plant can make that back. Somehow nobody got hit there. I'd swear the fighters just perfectly weaved around each other. Piranha Plant not even getting to get his Okay, so it turns out Piranha Plant actually does have teeny tiny feet underneath the flower pot, which does make sense because it would be almost impossible for him to move otherwise. He'd have to literally drag himself on the ground. But in order to see the tiny feet, you actually have to usually pause the game, usually due to the positioning of Piranha Plant and the posing and whatnot. Very lengthy rapid jab from Piranha Plant. Usually if your opponent DIs out, they can make it out slightly sooner than that. Piranha Plant gets the tech, so he's not accidentally killed by Chrom. Which, I know I'm talking about it a lot, but it is the signature trait of the Chrom amiibo. It's how he gets at least half of his kills. I'm pretty sure it's how he got into the tournament this year. Chrom really loving these grabs. I'm not entirely sure why. Chrom has a grab, like every character does. It's not a particularly spectacular grab, mainly due to Chrom's sword being so spectacular in pretty much every other respect. Forward air is able to kill Piranha Plant. Chrom has taken about 60%, so he has to watch out for that. But Chrom is a definite contender for one of the characters. Chrom is a character who deals a lot of damage and dies fast. His recovery is very exploitable if you know what you're doing, but Chrom also hits hard. He effectively has the moveset of Roy, but with the recovery of Ike. And he doesn't have Roy's weakness of the tip of his sword being significantly weaker than the hilt. Chrom might be able to make it back from that, and he suicides Piranha Plant, as the prophecy foretold. Piranha using the Patui to successfully interrupt Chrom out of the Blade Dance. It actually put him ahead in percentage, but it also meant that he didn't have to get hit by the whole move. Chrom playing very close to the edge here, actually able to successfully land. He had to land on the platform though, because on this stage it's actually uncommon for a lot of stages to have platforms that extend over the side limits of them, but this stage does. So if Chrom recovers too high, he literally cannot grab the ledge, because when he comes back down, he will land on the platform every single time. It does, however, give an extra recovery mix-up for most characters, although the platforms don't have a ledge you can grab, so that is something that needs to be remembered, I suppose. Right. Both characters landing on separate sides of the stage. Piranha Plant trying to get a back air. Chrom not dragging Piranha Plant to their mutually assured destruction. Unless he does it now. Nope. Piranha Plant was 2 on the stage. Sends Chrom really far out. And Chrom finishes the game with the Chrom special, the suicide recovery. I don't blame him for going for it, it's just surprising that it's worked for so long. And now we have Greninja against Toon Link. Toon Link, of course, being the Link from The Legend of Zelda The Wind Waker. They had to call him something, and Young Link was already taken. So Toon Link is what we got. Even if he isn't particularly cartoony, I suppose he is more cartoon-like in appearance than most of the other Links we've had, especially up till that point. It is also interesting to see how effectively the different Zelda games having such different art styles has led to what should effectively be the same character getting 3 different character slots in the same game. And Toon Link goes for a down air onto the platform. You can hit some characters through the platform, because your sword does extend below your person, but it's easier on the taller characters. So the shorter character is, the less likely it's going to work. Greninja is not a character I could reasonably call short. However, due to his posturing, he actually doesn't have most of that verticality to him that other characters of his height would also have. So, it's funny, his stance actually makes him wider than he is tall, I'm pretty sure. That, of course, being because he has an incredibly wide stance. Also doesn't help that the second half of his legs are, like, noodle width. A lot less intimidating. But it does give the side effect of making Greninja look like he has thunder thighs. Toon Link, using a whole bunch of bombs, he actually, it did get it to work out. Toon Link's bombs are actually what set him apart, I'd say, the most from Young Link. They do have, of course, other move differences, especially the neutral special, the bow and arrow. But Toon Link's bombs explode slower, which sounds not particularly useful, but they still explode on contact with the opponent, not with the opponent's shield, mind you. But they explode on contact with the opponent, which is technically what you need them. Actually, they might explode on contact on the shield. It might be dependent. I'll have to double check that, actually. Either way, if your opponent isn't shielding, the bombs explode the moment they hit them. So your bombs taking longer to explode effectively means that you get to hold them for longer, which means that you are more likely at any... Oh, there we go. Bomb bounced off the shield. And Toon Link actually got a Z-drop down air there. I didn't know the amiibo could do that. Although I guess I also don't know if the amiibo did that on purpose, but he also did it again there, and he actually suffered for it because he was still holding the bomb. That is the reason you want to drop the bomb at some point. You don't want it to blow up when it's on your person. Greninja going for the run off the ledge instant back air. If your opponent lingers just a little bit too long on the ledge, it's a really quick option. At least I've gotten people with it all the time. Especially because Greninja's back air comes out so much quicker than his forward air. A lot of opponents might just forget you have it. Combined with, of course, Greninja's incredibly fast dash speed. Goes for an up air, does not get a drag down or a kill off the top. Always the... I want to call it the 50-50, but Greninja really gets to decide. Unless, you know, he has problems with the input, then he kind of doesn't. And that does get interesting because he needs to fast fall in order to get the drag down. And even then, it's mostly useful when you're above land, I should mention. When you're off stage, you really don't get too many Greninja drag downs. Especially because that can often lead to Greninja dying as well. Toon Link with some amazing bomb pressure there, but then he blew up the bomb in his own face. Oh, bomb bouncing off the shield again. I guess that proves my earlier theory. Well, proves the one wrong and the one right. But Greninja loving these up smashes. It does hit through the platform, so it does. It is something interesting in Smash Brothers in that, because smash attacks are more aggressive. Usually, not necessarily always though. The smash attacks will have more range than your tilt attacks. So, from a casual player's perspective, it would appear that you should always use the attack with more range. But it's more of a measure that makes the smash attacks more useful, but depending on how much extra range they have, definitely does depend on which move is your go-to option for covering that same area of space. For example, Greninja's up tilt really isn't all that spectacular. It's not even a terrible move, it's just all of his other moves are usually a higher priority. And Greninja's up tilt covers a little bit above him, and there you could actually see it right there. You can kind of combo out of it sometimes, but usually not super long combos. Whereas Greninja's up smash does good damage and it drags opponents into the strong hitbox. And it's definitely long enough to hit opponents who are on a platform. Toon Link with one of the hardest to land arrows I think I've ever seen. Definitely should have gone for a different projectile there. Loving these bombs. Maybe he should consider throwing some boomerangs in there just to mix up the gameplay, if nothing else than for our sake. But also in general predictability, if you throw 17 bombs at your opponent, they're probably going to guess the 18th bomb. Again, Toon Link with the great shield pressure on with the bomb, and then getting blown up by his own bomb. It even got the combo hit off the boomerang, but he wasn't able to... I guess he wasn't expecting it to hit Greninja, so he didn't capitalize on it. Very risky down air that gets him killed with a forward smash at the ledge. Greninja didn't even lose a stock. That brings us to Richter against Link. Gonna be on Smashville, a stage with a platform in the middle, so hopefully the amiibo will be sensible and not try to spam projectiles too much. Both of these characters do actually have some pretty good projectile gameplay, I guess I'd say. So they could if they wanted to, but that was actually a good arrow from Link because he couldn't have tried to punish any of Richter's get-ups fast enough. I guess maybe he could have tried it with a sword beam or maybe a boomerang, but I think the bow and arrow was fine there. Link getting footstool on Richter, who I guess forgot about the existence of his double jump because he definitely grabbed the ledge there, so he should have had his double jump. Link actually taking advantage of the fact that his character dropped the bomb to pressure Richter further. Both characters grabbing the ledge, none of them overriding the other. That is something that... Okay, so it has changed in the various Smash Brothers games. Up until Smash Brothers Brawl, and including Brawl actually, if you grabbed the ledge, someone else could not grab the ledge. In Smash 4 they changed it so that you could do what's called ledge trumping, where if someone is grabbing the ledge, you can grab the ledge after them and it will force them off. In Smash Ultimate, they kept ledge trumping, but they basically toned it down. If your opponent already inputs a get-up, a get-up option, then they won't get kicked off of the ledge, they'll just keep doing their get-up option. So if you grab the ledge slightly before your opponent, you can still usually successfully get onto the stage. And they did also add some extra versatility in that you're not sent to the exact same location every time when you are ledge trumped, basically turning it into a tech chase scenario, and that alone made the whole mechanic a lot less consistent. And Richter gets his recovery gimped again. This is not looking good for Richter fans. Link makes it back to the stage. Richter needs to find something to get his first kill, then cheese out a second kill, and then get a third kill, and then he has a chance of winning. Well, actually, I guess he would automatically win because he killed like 3 times. But that's really not looking probable. Especially when you do stuff like fall off the ledge and throw a boomerang that'll never hit Link. Up close, Simon forward smash. Sorry, Richter forward smash. So the whip is obviously stronger than... Okay, when you're close enough to the forward smash of Richter and Simon, the closer you are to them, I believe it actually does weaker damage. I specifically know that there's a sour spot at the very front of the move, which does make sense. They're trying to whip you. It would be a little bit weird if the strongest hitbox was the hand that's holding the whip. And Richter got his recovery stuffed out again. That match goes to Link. And here we have Yoshi against Incineroar. I will say this should be a difficult matchup for Incineroar, specifically because Yoshi is the character with the highest airspeed in the game. Yes, I know, barely beating out Jigglypuff. And Incineroar, I believe, has the current slowest ground speed. Which is also good to know because, first of all, most characters have a faster ground speed than airspeed. But the differential between these characters is high enough that I'm pretty sure Yoshi's airspeed is probably faster than Incineroar's ground speed. Something to check for later, I suppose. But this is important because it means that Yoshi is the one who basically gets to choose all of the interactions, or at least what fights he wants to pick. because Incineroar can't really do much about it. Also, one of Incineroar's strongest moves is his side special. He just sat there and he used it to recover. The Alolan Whip, which is very difficult to land on aerial opponents because you have to be on the same elevation as them because it's a move that travels strictly sideways. So if your opponent is jumping, you have to, first of all, jump to get up to their level, and Yoshi has an amazing double jump, by the way. And also, because of Yoshi's airspeed, he should have a much easier time getting out of the way. It's why you usually see Incineroar use it on grounded opponents, because when someone is standing on the ground, there's no chance they're going to slide under the move, because, at least as far as I know, most characters can't burrow into the ground in some sort of way. And I guess they could try to jump over it, but if they're at a range at which they can jump over your side special on reaction, you probably weren't going to hit it anyway. Yoshi just falling into that up smash. He has taken up a lot of damage really quick. Incineroar is not a fighter who struggles to find kill options. He kind of just has a bunch. And if he gets revenge going, then he gets even more. Or usually he just uses the really good ones and they kill earlier. Incineroar put off stage. Very high up though. Because of the way Incineroar's up special works, it's cross chop, which is actually one of the more famous Pokemon moves. Incineroar jumps up and then crashes down at a diagonal angle. So it's really not great for distance. However, if Incineroar has been sent high, it is effectively perfectly covering the angle he needs. There you can see Incineroar didn't quite have enough distance to get to the ledge, which was critical for his survivability. Incineroar trying to jump after Yoshi. Yoshi, of course, having a lot of airtime. And he was able to kill Yoshi off the top. Both characters now at their final stock 0% before that hit there. Incineroar gets a combo off. Despite his very slow everything, his moves are actually pretty good. That's one of the general balancing design concepts of characters. That heavyweights usually have better moves than most other characters, but they're usually pretty slow or just plodding along to make up for it. You can have good moves, but you don't get to use them as often. Meanwhile, characters who are very fast have weaker moves because they get to use those moves much more often. Yoshi needs to find a way to safely land, and he did. Got a hit out on Incineroar, but too many more of those up airs will kill Yoshi, and that dash attack actually did. So Incineroar will be moving on. And for the last match of this episode, we have Samus against Wolf. Normally this would be a pretty rough matchup for Samus, specifically because Samus is a character with excellent long-range options. They're all projectiles, and Wolf has a reflector, which pretty handily deals with all of those long-range options. Now I say normally because the thing about these amiibo is that they really don't do that much. The amiibo do actually reflect when the opportunity arises. I'm pretty sure they have specific programming to recognize projectiles that are incoming. But in general, they don't spam projectiles nearly as much as I've seen certain players do whenever I face them online. So for the average default Samus playstyle, this would be rougher than the average match. It should be, I'd say, pretty even, especially when you consider that the battlefield platform layout actually helps Samus chain up airs together in a combo. I guess Wolf can do it too, but his up airs are usually a lot harder to land multiple in a row, whereas Samus is normally limited by how many platforms she has to jump off of. Doesn't save her from getting up smashed, though. Wolf with another fully charged, well, not fully charged, but heavily charged up smash. Samus barely avoided it, only to get hit by the next one immediately. Wolf does have a fast fall speed, so he can make it back down to the ground pretty quick. It does kind of serve as a double-edged sword, though, because you don't want to have a fast fall speed when you're trying to recover. I guess the exception is, of course, you're fine with having a fast fall speed as long as you have a special move that can negate that completely. But I guess you could say that about any negative trait in this game. That, yes, I can... For example, if you had a character who always died in one hit, but had a special move that made them die in 300 hits instead, then it would effectively be a weakness that they strictly don't have, because they have a move that completely removes that weakness. That's why you don't see that character. I don't even know how that character would play, but mostly because that's an extreme example. Very high up spike from Samus there. It is going to take Wolf's stock in a very flashy way, but Samus is a random smash attack away from death, especially because a lot of Wolf's smash attacks are very difficult to punish. They have a lot of low end lag. Part of Wolf's, I guess I'd say, design is that he is a... I've used the term before, a heavyweight character who is heavyweight but, in that Wolf is a heavy character, but he really isn't that heavy, which also helps make up for the fact that he isn't as large as other heavyweights, which can... It usually gives your moves a little bit more range because your limbs are longer, but it also means you're a lot more likely to get hit by certain combos. So Wolf is a heavyweight who isn't heavy, and that allows some of his other features to be a little bit dialed up to compensate in the grand act of balancing a character. Wolf keeps making it back down, but then Samus keeps hitting him with a random something. Wolf finally gets his feet on the ground. And he's just hitting Samus with a lot of moves. None of them are killing, but Samus is now definitely at a kill percentage. Especially since both characters at 100% plus are going to start benefiting from Rage, which I believe starts a little bit earlier than 100%, but usually 100% is the threshold where you have to start thinking about the extra knockback that all your moves are going to be getting. As long as it's not in a combo scenario. I'm specifically talking about smash attacks to get the opponent out of the blast zone. Up smash is not going to kill Samus there. However, if Wolf was still on his last stock, it actually might have. I don't know all the actual computations. The formulas in Smash Brothers are actually surprisingly complex with all the variables they have to account for. You can look at some of them online. I don't know how people have found them, but it feels like back in chemistry class when you had to convert materials to different units. That's it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed. Make sure to watch out for episode 4, which should hopefully be coming out soon. We had a lot of problems this year, so I apologize for that, but that's also how it goes every year as it turns out, so I guess I apologize for those too. Either way, I hope you enjoyed the video. Got other videos coming out, be sure to watch those, but until then, bye.